distinguished speakers who span across quantum, secure blockchain signatures, custody frameworks, fault-tolerant blockchain architectures, and all these talks really reflect the evolving landscape of blockchain as well, and of blockchain innovation. So hopefully, while the talks are going on, you can think of interesting questions to ask our speakers. Right, it's a session, unfortunately, it's only 1 hour long, so each of our speakers have around 10 to 15 minutes. Right, so do keep your questions in mind. We will group the questions until the end, right, and we will have one Q&A session at the end to wrap up. Right, so without further ado, let's begin with our first speaker. So our first speaker is Johan Look. He's the co-founder of Libertas. Right, it's a quantum security and communications company, currently in stealth mode, so you heard it here first. Right, and Johan has extensive experience in Singapore's defense industry as a cryptographic and geospatial software engineer, contributing to intelligence, homeland security, and reconnaissance projects. He holds a degree in digital systems security with a focus on applied cryptography from the University of Wollongong, and was among the early contributors to Bulletproofs, a pioneering zero-knowledge proof protocol. And today he will present his paper on GPU and quantum accelerated PQTLS, the Libertas messaging system. Okay, let's welcome Johan.
Thanks. Thank you for the introduction. So good afternoon, everybody. It has come to my attention that actually the toughest role of a presenter is to be the first one speaking after lunch. Because everybody is probably full after eating, and it's a very big topic, quantum, and it's probably going to be very hard for you to digest. So we look at PQTLS, right? It actually stands for post-quantum. So you might be wondering what's the difference between quantum and post-quantum. So for quantum itself, it is the usage of using quantum physics. Its applications are in quantum communications, which is the next level of satellite communications from space all the way to ground-based systems, which is facilitated through the key distribution along with the key management systems, which is developed currently in test phase. And then also is quantum computing, which is the antithesis of everyone here, because I'm pretty sure everyone here holds Bitcoin. And so you're always wondering like things about quantum computing and all that. But our own take is that there's more things to worry about than Bitcoin getting to zero. And so PQ is actually post-quantum, and there's only one subset of it, which is post-quantum cryptography. So it is the evolution of digital signature schemes, which is the bedrock of all financial transactions you see today. So the most famous one is RSA. Everyone here knows what is RSA. It is actually one of the signature schemes that is being used that powers all of our financial transactions messaging, especially with SWIFT, and as we move towards a stablecoin standard with the Genius and Clarity Act. And so PQ is post-quantum cryptography. It's the evolution of RSA. It has been finalized or it was a competition that was kick-started back in I'll just carry on. You can just click on and on this one. Yeah. So PQ post-quantum cryptography was a competition that was launched in 2017 by NIST. So the NIST actually invited a lot of esteemed academicians, mathematicians, cryptographers to actually create their standards which they deem might be relevant when it comes to a quantum computing era. And so from a list of algorithms that were submitted for the competition, 4 were chosen. 2 were based on lattices and the other 2 are based on hashes. So interesting enough is that the BIS, which is the central bank of all central banks, actually collaborated with NIST to do Project Leap. And that's actually one of the inspiration behind the PQTLS that we're designing. And so what Project Leap aims to accomplish is that, BIS is responsible for SWIFT, right? Everybody here is aware of it. So SWIFT is responsible for like 99% of everything that we do, including our pay now, pay last system and cross-border settlement of all transactions. And so it's also another inspiration is, which I did not include, is by Fudan University, where they actually tried out using a PQTLS because there's a lot of problems faced when one were to upgrade from existing TLS all the way to a PQ one. And so the Fudan University one is using CPUs to ensure that it can be used during regular usages, put it that way. And finally is that we got inspiration from Xanadu Quantum, which is a Canadian state-owned quantum computer company, where they actually launched toolkits for people to use their quantum computer over GPUs. And even though they only released like 9 qubits, it's way faster than any cluster of GPUs put together. And so a lot of problems are faced is that the project lead document actually stated that when they were to upgrade from their existing Swift workload to include post-quantum signatures, it actually created a lot of problems. Which is, the first one is the most important, is that the messages doesn't go through. It just gets lost. So imagine if you were to send money from Singapore all the way to the US using Swift, and all of a sudden you don't receive it and it ends up somewhere else, everybody's going to be stunned. Because when you think about when it comes to payments, the everyday user, the end user, does not think about security. If you were to upgrade from something to another, the most important thing is that it has to perform better than the last one. And so, especially when it comes to Swift, which is responsible for everything, creates a problem that needs to be solved, which is what the Fudan University paper actually attempted to solve. And then the most important thing is that, especially when it comes to Web3 infrastructure, which is the majority of blockchains in the existing industry, like your Solanas, your Ethereums, and the rest, which have become various permission forms that are utilized by JP Morgan and every single stablecoin infrastructure, is that they are optimized only for their current usage, which means that even though many of them claim, like Avalanche claim that they can upgrade their existing signature schemes to one based on lattices, the problem is that we have to think of blockchains like countries. That means you have to send one from one chain to the destination chain, from source chain to destination chain. And if the cross-chain messaging tool is not optimized for sending messages with an increased signature size, that will cause a lot of problems for the entire network. And second of all is that for regulatory and compliance, is that a lot of the bills that are written are not in sync with what NIC standards are, which means that they're going to follow what the US government wants, but then the standards itself are two different things. That means that if they want to upgrade from one infrastructure to another, suppose stablecoins, in another 5 years down the road, they will have to upgrade again, which causes a lot of bottleneck issues. And finally is that, like I talked about, the most important tool when it comes to the future of stablecoins and blockchains is that it's not really the chain itself, it is the cross-asset transfer, as cited by the MAS study. They actually went to conduct a research using XLR, Chainlink, and Layer 0 to see which one is the best one for doing stablecoin transfers between one chain to the next. And so when you think about all these cross-chain protocols, they are all run on the most basic fundamental thing, which is TLS. And even though they slap on very nice keywords so that people understand even more. And so we are not really reinventing the wheel. In fact, we are sort of optimizing the way that TLS can function with a post-quantum signature. And the first tool, the CPU and the GPU one, is probably very common to most people here, especially if you are in the AI space or if you are really doing a standard computation. The most interesting thing is using a quantum computer, which I highly doubt that unless you are directly working with a quantum computer, it's going to cost a lot. So the magical thing about using a quantum computer is that it allows you to load as many signatures as you want. Even though it costs you $7,000 per hour to use one, you can actually load as many qubits, apply like Hadamard gates, and then you can see all the signatures generate. So it achieves everything that you want from a CPU and a GPU, which is to use during constant time, and one that can preload many signatures as you can because you want to do it off-chain, not on-chain. As you can see, because the most recent example of like off-chain, on-chain verification that carried out by Subway isn't the most ideal scenario, especially if you want to achieve quantum security. And then when it comes to this, like I said, we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. It is basically creating a TLS that can be used across different chains. And then this creates a problem is that even though we try to test and send from one chain to another chain, it creates a problem, which is their chains are not optimized to support the amount of workload that we want. So let's say during 1 hour, we were to send like 1 billion messages using a quantum computer. Every single chain will not be able to finalize the messages, and everything will be stuck. So that means that through just creating a cross-chain protocol that can support a quantum future, we have to reinvent everything. That means the block has to change, all the chains have to change, every single thing has to change. Because in the future, it will not be us humans making a purchase for coffee. As you guys probably know that. Next slide. So various use cases, the first one I mentioned is the finance one, which is probably going to be stable coins that move forward to the future, is that we all understand that technology companies ultimately have become monopolies, like Visa and MasterCard, right? So what we're aiming for is, I know it sounds very outlandish, is to become a monopoly, because monopoly rewards the infrastructure, which means that this allows us to finally solve the biggest problem which blockchains are supposed to have with compliance issues, which is to be the one that are able to detect KYC, AML, and the rest. Because this is a problem that a lot of chains are trying to solve, especially with the bridge, what's the company called? Stripe. Stripe trying to launch their own layer 1. And so another thing is that it's something that we are theoretically testing is through using quantum communications. But as of right now, we all know that the most important thing for quantum communications is usually related to national security. So in the likelihood that all our FIs cannot suffer any systemic risk, there's always a need to back up all their financial workloads, which means that there's always going to be a E91 assisted recovery. If you guys want to read more, I can pass you a white paper. It goes into very heavy, in-depth techniques of how the qubits can load up the state and switch the APIs. And then something which holds very close to my heart is in the defense industry. In fact, nowadays we are moving towards an era where technology companies are finally booking the government. I don't want to say that we are going to be walking into World War III, but it's a very telling sign. And so the most biggest example of why quantum is a very big threat is that recently in May, there was a Ukrainian startup that reinvented the way communications can be done. They no longer use satellites. In fact, they're using a new form of radio wave technology that enables their frontline soldiers to communicate with each other. And it's gotten to the point where the US Air Force even went through all the way to procure these signal sets from them. And so, what's the magic sauce behind their signal set? Is that it uses PQC, post-quantum cryptography. And so this actually shows that, or more likely shows, it always repeats itself, is that it's always through the battlefield where lives are concerned, the technology is accelerated. And yeah, let's not go too far with that. And then finally, then when it comes to medical industry, we all know that our bio data are very unique. Protein sampling, there's one study that I read from Harvard, is that it actually creates a true randomness, which is very different from the HSMs that we have today. And so when you tie everything together, we believe that the future of blockchains, AI, and quantum together will be meshed together. I mentioned it will no longer be humans making purchases by going to the shop and buying like a coffee. It's going to be a future where, let's say you drink an espresso every Tuesday, and then the merchant has an LLM that's sitting on there, or an agent that's sitting on there, that knows that you always drink espresso on Tuesday. But let's say you went for a medical appointment, and then all of a sudden the doctor says that you cannot have caffeine. And so the order switches up. You have to drink something that is not caffeinated. And so both side agents will automatically know what you want. The moment you go into a shop, you get the order. Because everything is stored on chain, it's all qubits that's entangled together, and that's probably going to be the future. And that's why what we are trying to accomplish is to reinvent how the future of society is going to look like. That's one of the lofty goals. So I have come to the end of today's presentation. You can actually, I'm not hiring at the moment, but you can take down my contact if you want to. Do I have time for one question? Or you have more, you can speak to me. I'll be around.
Maybe you can leave the questions till the end.
Yeah, sure.
So thanks, Johan. Let's thank